Have you ever wondered why some of the most violent places on Earth somehow find peace against all odds, while billions of dollars and huge international efforts just completely fail somewhere else? It's a massive puzzle. Okay, let's dive into this because the answer might just change how you see the world. To really get our heads around this, we're going to look at one of the most powerful examples you can find. So on one side, you've got Somalia, a name that, for most of us, has meant chaos for decades. And then right next door, sharing the same culture, the same history, you've got Somaliland, a place of remarkable peace. How on earth is that possible? And that brings us to our first part, a tale of two Somalias. To really understand the lesson they teach us, we've got to get a feel for just how wildly different their stories have been. So first up, Somalia. It's the story you've probably heard on the news. For decades, no real central government to speak of. Huge parts of the country are run by armed groups like Al-Shabaab, and it's just been stuck in this cycle of poverty and corruption. But now, look at Somaliland. They broke away from Somalia back in 1991, and since then, they've actually built working institutions. They hold democratic elections, and get this, they have a stable power grid. That might sound like a small thing, but in a place like this, it's a huge sign of stability. So the difference in government is pretty clear, right? But what does that actually mean for the people living there? What's the real human cost of taking one path over the other? Well, the numbers, they're just staggering. Just look at this. It's incredible. Between 2000 and 2018, Somalia had over 21,000 casualties from the conflict. In that same time, Somaliland had just 357. I mean, let that sink in for a second. That's 60 times more deaths in a population that's only 3 times bigger. It really makes you ask, what went so horribly wrong in one place and so incredibly right in the other? And this brings us to the heart of the problem, something author Séverine Autesserre calls peace incorporated. It's the standard top-down way the world tries to build peace. And as we're about to see, it fails a lot. So what is Peace Inc. exactly? Well, think of it like this giant, one-size-fits-all machine. It's run by big international organizations, they fly in outside experts, and they focus all their energy on getting the guys at the top to sign a piece of paper, often completely ignoring the actual people on the ground. And Somalia has basically been the main testing ground for this whole approach. Over the last 30 years, the international community has held 24 huge peace summits for the country. And these summits are backed by just enormous sums of money. We're talking about $1.5 billion in foreign aid pouring into Somalia every single year. And after all those meetings, all those experts, and all that cash, what's the result? Decades of chaos that just keeps going. The Peace Inc. approach hasn't just failed to bring peace, it's made the country almost completely dependent on outside money to even function. Okay, so if that top-down model is such a bust, what's the alternative? Well, this is where we get to the bottom-up solution, and it's a totally different way of thinking about how to make peace. Bottom-up peace building is, well, it's pretty much the exact opposite of Peace Inc. It's not about outsiders coming in. It's all about empowering the actual local people to solve their own problems, using their own knowledge and their own traditions. It's about solutions that fit the place, not a cookie-cutter plan from thousands of miles away. And guess what? This is precisely how Somaliland did it. While the rest of the world was hosting fancy summits for Somalia's warlords, the people in Somaliland held 39 of their own local peace conferences. And they weren't led by foreign diplomats, they were led by their own religious leaders and community elders. They focused on what actually mattered to people, things like forgiveness and making things right for what was lost. This quote just nails it. Somaliland's peace is locally designed, locally managed, locally paid, and locally owned. It's so powerful. They didn't wait around for someone to save them. They built their own peace from the ground up. Now, I know what you might be thinking. Okay, Somaliland is a great story, but it's got to be a one-off, right? An exception? Well, here's the fascinating part. It's not. This pattern, this bottom-up success, it shows up in some of the most violent and hopeless places on the planet. Let's jump over to Colombia, a country torn apart by a 60-year civil war that's killed over 250,000 people. And yet, even there, right in the middle of all that violence, regular communities have created their own zones of peace. In places like San Jose de Apartador, the people there make this incredible public commitment. They refuse to carry guns. They refuse to give information to any armed group. They simply refuse to be a part of the war. They are actively, as a community, choosing peace. But maybe the most stunning example of all comes from the very heart of the Israeli-Palestinian conflict. While at least a dozen high-level peace deals have collapsed, one tiny village has succeeded where everyone else has failed. It's called Wahat al-Salam, Neve Shalom, the Oasis of Peace. For 48 years, Israeli Jews and Palestinian Arabs have been living there, together as equals. So what's the big takeaway here? Why do these stories from these specific places matter to all of us? Well, because this is about so much more than just a few success stories. This could actually be a blueprint for how we build a more peaceful world. So here's the key idea. Real, lasting peace isn't something you can force on a place from the outside. It has to be built, brick by the local communities themselves. And the role for the rest of the world? It shouldn't be to lead, but to find these local heroes and give them the support they need to do their work. When you really look at it, what these stories from the front lines of peace give us, more than anything else, is a profound sense of hope. They prove that even when things seem completely broken, ordinary people have the power to make extraordinary change. And that leaves us with one last, pretty powerful question to think about. If this kind of grassroots peace can actually take root in places like Somaliland and Colombia, and even between Israelis and Palestinians, just imagine where else it might be possible.